In this video, we're going to be talking about how do you analyze the data and why do you analyze the data. So if you're in for this, let's get into this right now. So before starting over, this is my 5th video in my data analyst series, and if you're new to this channel, I would recommend going back to my first video and starting from there. So in my all the videos up till now, we learned how do we extract data, how do we manipulate the data, how we visualize the data. And now we have got everything set up. So we have visualized the data. Now is the time when we're going to analyze the data. So how do we analyze our data? We're going to be talking in this video right now. And I know there are 1,000 different ways how you can analyze. Right now, I'd be covering the basics pieces of it. There are thousands of variations of how you can analyze the data. It's completely up to your discretion. But in this case, I'm going over the basics and how do you analyze the data. So let's get into this right now. So in this specific example, we have been using this same sample data set. This sample data set has data by landing page. We have data by channel. We have data by country. We have data by city. We have data by device. We have data by month. So these are all different data sets that we had created. Now what I went ahead and did was I basically made a sample dashboard of how things would look like. So in this case, you can see I visualized our first data. That was the data by landing page. So now we have all these areas of how we can we have all these different landing page types that we know that are there in that data set. So in this, before we go into analyzing the data, the first thing that we want to see is our data making sense. So now when I look at this data, I can clearly see that food was the maximum was the best traffic driver. So 8,615 sessions came out from all the topics that were related to food, and food that was basically categorized from our data set, which was right here, this one. So in this, I had categorized our landing pages by all these different landing page types, which was again done through lookup table. So now we have this. Now next, what I did was I created a bar chart. So in this bar chart, we have visualized all the different all the sessions that came from based on our landing page types. And then this specific one with where it says top 100 blog types. So this is telling us that out of those 100 data lines that we had, how many of those belong to which category. So clearly in this, 40 record counts were coming in from food or food based products or landing page. And this specific one is telling us what was their average sessions per page. So average sessions per page is just dividing our total number of sessions divided by the record count. So by this I know that we were getting a lot of more sessions were again coming from products, which is something we didn't knew at all. So where is products? Products is right here. So in this case, I'm seeing that we only had 5 record counts. So 5 data lines were coming from products. And if you see here, we are seeing 6,937 sessions. So now this is telling me something which is an insight, that we just created 5 different blog posts, and with that we got 6,937 sessions. So this is something which is an insight, and this is something that needs to be reported as well. So this is why I created this first page. Now let's go over to the next page here. So in this next page, I have my geomaps. Geomaps are one of my favorites because this gives me a better picture of where exactly are these sessions coming from. So now when I hover over United States, I know 18,000 sessions from the total came from United States. So this is again an insight which we didn't knew until we put this chart up here. And if you want to see like in the table format, clearly you can see that most of the sessions that were coming from United States were basically organic search. So people were actually looking them on Google and they were finding them out. Then there were some of them who were doing direct searches. So this is just a little bit more insight of from United States what was actually the traffic driver. These are the insights that I'm looking for. But in this case, the big insight would be if you see the sessions that were coming from India, they were coming from social. But then we didn't get a lot of sessions. We only got 399. But if you see the total amount of the time spent on page was the highest amongst all the other countries and channel grouping. So this is again an insight which we didn't knew until we visualized the data. So the whole purpose for data visualization is that we get these anomalies which are usually hidden in the data set. And now whether you are analyzing 100 rows or whether you're analyzing 1,000, 10,000, 1 million, it doesn't matter. The amount of data has nothing to do with the logic that we are running. In this case, we are building our data analysis piece on a logic, and using that logic we are building it. So the data amount has nothing to do with anything. So in this specific example, I only had 100 lines. So with this, I can tell that, okay, this is something which is an anomaly and needs to be reported as well. Now let's go over to the next page here. So in this next page, what I have done is I've literally selected city and I've created another geochart. And in that geochart, that is basically telling us where in the city those sessions were coming in from. So clearly you can see there's a big cluster over United States that is over on the east side where most of their sessions are coming in from. Then there's like a few dots that are coming from California, there's few coming from Seattle, Washington area, and then there are few coming from south, which is Florida, Texas, that region. And if you go over to the Africa side, in Africa you can see there are some of them that are coming from Nigeria, then there are some of them which are just spread out across randomly. And in this, the only thing that I want to highlight is the size of the dot is basically telling us how many sessions came from. So bigger the dot, more the sessions, smaller the dot, lesser the sessions. So in this case, our top session driver was New York City. This is again an insight which we didn't knew until we visualized the data. And again, this is the same chart which I created, but instead of using country, I was using city. So clearly you can see New York City, we got the maximum number of sessions. People were coming in from organic search, people were coming from social, people were coming from direct, and all these areas. So these are all the insights that we are looking for. Another variable that we want to analyze is bounce rate. Bounce rate is basically if somebody comes down to your website and they do not do anything, they just land on your landing page or website and then just click off from there. So you would want to have lower the bounce rate, means that they did something, they did some activity on your website. So that's the whole purpose of this. Now going over to our next slide. So this slide is one of my favorites. This is called a cross tab pivot. So in this, what we are actually looking for, we have two different dimensions. One dimension which is in the vertical side is our device category, is our browser. So this is telling us that Safari, people came from Safari, people came from Mozilla, Internet Explorer, Chrome, and then on our left hand side, on the vertical side, we have our device category. So device category is telling us that what device that they were using. So this specific chart, the cross pivot tables, give you a deeper insight of what is actually working. So in this, I can see that a lot of people were coming in from Chrome, that is known, but then in Chrome, people were using mobile phone was their preferred way of reaching that website. So again, this is an insight which we didn't knew until we visualized that data. Similarly, I did the same thing for new users, and this is again the same thing. So the first table up here is covering sessions. The second table here is covering new users, because this is again I want to see where new people were coming in. So these are the people who have just this was their first time, or they haven't done repeated sessions. And then my last one is average time per session. So if you would remember, we created this calculated metric in our third video, and this is why we use this, because now I know from Firefox and desktop, people were spending a lot of their time. So average time per session from Firefox was much higher compared to all the other browsers that are out there. So these are the small insights that we're actually looking for, and these insights eventually would get reported on when we are creating our report. And the report would be our final deliverable, which is required from any data analyst, that what you have done from all this point. So we started off from extracting the data, then we went over to manipulating the data, then we visualized the data, and then our fourth step was basically analyzing the data. So right now we are analyzing, and we are making a note of these points, these small little details that we are going to put it up on a PowerPoint presentation. And then my final page that I created was basically, this is a time trend. So in this, I'm looking for is month over month. So in which month I had the maximum number of sessions. So this gives me an idea of the seasonality piece of it. So there could be times when people are coming onto your website because it's a holiday period and they're all at home, so they have more time in their hands. So this just gives me like a seasonality piece of how things are looking like. So in this table, and I literally did this table, I used bar graphs, and I used session was my metric, and month was my dimension. So in this, I can clearly see that February 2020, I brought in maximum number of sessions. So this is again an insight for somebody who has been running their website for a long time, and they want to see when people are coming in. So again, if you would see on January, which is 2101, we had the second highest. So this is again a small insight which anybody who's analyzing the data would want to know. So in the bigger picture, what we are doing by analyzing the data is we are looking out for these small little points which usually get hidden out. So if there's like an anomaly, it could be in a good way, it could be in a bad way, it doesn't matter. So whatever the anomaly is, our goal is to make sure that we point out that anomaly. That is the job of a data analyst. And in this case, this is again a bar chart, but this bar chart is basically split out by different channels. So this is all that a data analyst does, so coming out with these small little insights which are there hidden in your data set. So if you like this video and you would want me to send this specific dashboard that I had created using all the data set that we have, I have a Google form in the description below. All you'll have to do is just fill up that Google form, and I would be happy to send you a copy of this dashboard. So you can use this for building your own data sets or working with your own data sets. And if you want to see what I have done up till now, I am putting my LinkedIn profile link in the description below, and I would be happy to answer your questions. All you'll have to do is just shoot me a connection invite and just let me know that you actually watched this video and you want to connect with me. And if you have any specific questions that you want to ask, you can either leave me a comment down below or you can connect with me on LinkedIn, and then we can take it from there. I would be happy to help with you. My next video would be coming out in 3 more days, and in that next video I would be covering how do you create a report. So what is the logical way of creating a report. The link to that video would be right up here. It should be up in 3 days, and after 3 days I'll edit that video. So if you like this video up till now, just give me a thumbs up, maybe subscribe to my channel for all videos that are coming up. I am going to be creating an in-depth series about everything that you need to know on how to become a data analyst. So I would see you in my next video. Bye bye.